There exists a silent paradox at the heart of every truly beautiful home. The less it shouts, the more it speaks. The less it accumulates, the more it offers. The more empty it appears to hurried eyes, the more full it is, of intention, of calm, of a life that actually deserves to be lived. Does it sound strange? It should sound familiar, because somewhere deep inside you, this already makes sense. If you are not yet part of this community, subscribe to the Minimalist Charm channel right now. Turn on notifications so you do not miss any conversation. And if this video speaks to you, and I have a feeling it will, leave a like. It is a small gesture, but it keeps this space alive, and I truly appreciate it. Today, I am going to share with you 6 Japanese secrets that changed my home, my mind, and, I dare say, my soul. They are not organizing tricks. They are not lists of things to throw away. They are principles that live in a culture thousands of years old, and that, when applied with elegance, transform any space into a place where you can breathe better. Secret 1. The courage to say no. There is a Japanese principle that speaks to the courage of refusal, the willingness to reject what does not serve you, to discard what has accumulated without purpose, and to separate yourself from the attachment that keeps everything frozen in place. This is not an organizational technique. It is a stance toward life itself. When I decided what would come back to Torrance with me from Japan, I spent weeks facing my belongings and asking one simple question for each object. Do you still have a place in the life I want to live? It was liberating, and a little painful, as every honest decision tends to be. My grandmother taught me something that stayed with me like a good perfume. An object that does not serve you is not neutral. It weighs. She said this while folding textiles with a precision that seemed like meditation, and it was. The problem most people face is not a lack of space. It is an excess of things that were never refused. Because saying no to an irresistible sale, to a gift you do not want but accept out of politeness, to an object that will be useful someday, it requires an inner clarity that few people cultivate. But when you cultivate it, it transforms everything. Therefore, this principle begins before the purchase. I use what I call the system of 3 questions. Does this object serve a real function in my life? Does it have genuine beauty? Does it carry a story that matters? If the answer is no to all 3, it does not enter my home. Simple as that. Drastic as that. Elegant as that. A client called me in because she felt her house was suffocating her. When I walked in, I understood immediately. She had decorative objects on every available surface. Beautiful, some of them. But together, they shouted. We spent an entire afternoon simply removing things. At the end, she looked at her living room, with half of what had been there before, and said in a voice that sounded relieved, "Now it feels like the house can breathe." This is the principle in action. It is not poverty of resources. It is wealth of judgment. Secret 2. The power of empty space. There exists a principle in Japanese design that has no direct translation into English, and that already tells us something about our culture: the value of intentional emptiness. It speaks to the space between things, the pause between musical notes, the silence that gives meaning to sound, the deliberate void that transforms a room into a place of true rest. In Japanese architecture, emptiness is not absence. It is a qualified presence. It is where attention finally comes to rest. When you look at a shelf with 15 objects, your eyes cannot stop on any one of them. They jump from one side to the other, restless with no landing place. Now imagine the same shelf with 3 objects chosen with care, and generous space between them. Your eyes rest. They breathe. They see, truly. I have a wooden dining table that bears the marks of time. Small imperfections that tell stories of shared meals, of conversations that were worth every minute, of a cup or two that overflowed by accident. On it, almost nothing sits exposed. Sometimes a single vase with a single flower, or nothing. And that nothing is exactly what makes the table feel abundant. This principle is not about minimalist aesthetics. It is a philosophy of life. It is the understanding that the empty space around you invites mental clarity, and that a clean countertop is not just pleasant to the eye, but frees your mind from the silent and endless task of processing visual chaos. And understand this: Visual chaos tires you, even when you think you are used to it, especially when you are. And if you want to start somewhere, and you want to start today, remove half of what is sitting out on your surfaces for just 1 week. Do not discard it yet. Just put it away. Notice how you feel. This simple experience usually reveals more than any book on organization ever could. Secret 3. The beauty of what is imperfect. In 1998, I broke a ceramic bowl that my grandmother gave me. It was a simple piece, dark clay, that she used to serve tea. I cried. Later I learned about the Japanese art of repairing what breaks with gold. The crack is not hidden or disguised. It is celebrated. Because it is part of the object's story. There is a Japanese aesthetic that honors imperfection, impermanence, and the unfinished. It is the radical and refreshing opposite of our culture of the new, the shiny, the perfect for photographs. Have you ever been in a home where everything was too perfect? Furniture without marks, surfaces without history, objects that seemed never to have been touched by real hands? It is beautiful for 2 minutes. Then it starts to feel like a display window, not a home, because what is too perfect does not welcome, it only impresses. And impressing is very different from welcoming. Real beauty has texture. It has time. It has visible use. I keep my jewelry in a walnut wood box. There are very few pieces. Each one has a specific meaning. Some have marks, small imperfections that accumulated over the years. I do not replace them with new and shiny pieces. The marks are part of their story, and of mine. So when you feel the urge to replace something that works excellently, but does not look new anymore, ask yourself, what does this mark tell me? Every imperfection that has survived time carries dignity. And dignity in a home is the greatest silent luxury that exists. Secret 4. Quality that resists time. There is a Japanese concept that expresses lament at waste. It can be translated as mourning what has been wasted, but in daily practice, it is a constant call to consciousness. Use well, take care, let things last. My mother is an entrepreneur in the fashion industry, a woman of genuinely impeccable taste, but obsessed with abundance and with accumulation. For a long time, she had too much of everything. Beautiful pieces, but many. In 2012, when she fell ill and had to slow down, she understood something I had already known for years. Having a lot does not mean using well. After that difficult time, she began to adopt minimalist practices. Not because I pushed her. I never impose anything on anyone, but because she herself saw that the quality of each choice mattered far more than the quantity of options available. Today, her closet is a model of curation. I cook with few utensils. Japanese knives, cast iron pans, handcrafted ceramics. Not because it costs less. It does not at all. But because they last. Because they function with an excellence that disposable objects never offer. Because every time I use them, there is a quiet satisfaction that only people with few truly good objects can really understand. There is a simple calculation that most people do not do. An object that lasts 10 years and costs $300 is, in the end, far cheaper than 5 objects that cost $60 each and last 2 years. And beyond the wallet, there is a benefit that appears on no receipt: the lightness of not needing to replace, choose, discard, and start all over again. That lightness has a value that no price can capture. This principle is also why I have few pairs of shoes, each with a clear and specific purpose. It is why my Turkish cotton towels are few, but of real quality. Each one lasts. Each one has its right place. And this, contrary to what it seems, is an act of abundance, not of deprivation. Secret 5. The financial intelligence of minimalism. Every Friday, I sit down with a cup of tea in a quiet space and open my financial journal. It is a ritual, never a task. And there is an enormous difference between the two. This practice of keeping household financial records was created in 1907 by a Japanese journalist. In a century when she did not have smartphones, applications, or digital spreadsheets, she understood something that technology still has not surpassed. Financial awareness begins in your hand. Writing down what you spend, with pen on paper, activates a level of attention that no electronic notification can reproduce. In 2008, I lost everything. The global financial crisis arrived without warning, as all crises do, and took with it what I had built on fragile foundations and without any real intention. It was from there that my most honest relationship with money was born, not as an enemy to be avoided, not as a trophy to be displayed, but as an ally that demands respect, clarity, and a look without illusion. I use 3 financial categories: necessities, growth, and generosity. Every dollar that comes in is directed with purpose. Before any non-essential purchase, I wait 30 days. Most of the time, the desire passes on its own, and with it goes the regret that would have come later. When the desire does not pass, I know it is real, and then I buy with serenity. My son Kenji, who now studies civil engineering at university, learned this as a child, not through sermons, through observation. He watched his mother record, reflect, and choose with calm. Today, he has a relationship with money that many 40-year-old adults do not have. This makes me prouder than any apartment recovery could. This practice is not about saving through deprivation. It is about seeing clearly. And when you see clearly where every cent goes, abundance, the real kind, the kind that does not need display, the kind that does not need crowds, begins to appear, discreetly, silently, in the only way that lasts. Secret 6. One moment, one encounter. There is a Japanese expression that says, "This moment will never happen again." This encounter is unique. This conversation, this meal, this afternoon light coming through the window, it happens only once. Exactly like this. Never again in the same way. Simple to understand. Radically difficult to practice in a world that passes by itself all the time. How many times have you sat down to a meal while your phone sat beside you? The television played in the background, and your mind was somewhere between what you had to do tomorrow and what you did not do yesterday. The food was there. The moment was there. But you truly were not. I learned this in a way I cannot forget. In 2011, I volunteered in the regions affected by the earthquake and tsunami in Japan, one of the greatest natural disasters in modern history. I saw people who lost everything in minutes, and what they mourned, when they could speak, were not the things lost. They were the moments not lived, the conversations postponed, the encounters that never happened because we will schedule it later. We will schedule it later. How many times have you said that? Since then, I have the habit of being present where I am. When I serve tea, with attention, with calm, with the care of someone who knows that gesture happens only once. When I am with someone, I am with that person, without dividing attention with a screen. When I organize a corner of my home, I do it with the focus of someone who understands that moment matters. This principle is not an organizational technique, but it is the heart of everything. Because an organized home, a streamlined wardrobe, an intentional pantry, none of this has real value if you pass through it all rushing, without seeing, without feeling, without being present. Minimalism without presence is just decoration, beautiful perhaps, but empty of truth. The silent abundance that Japanese people cultivate does not come from having much. It comes from being completely present with what you have. And that, my dear one, is the rarest and most real luxury that exists. What remains? The courage to say no teaches us to refuse before we accumulate, because true freedom begins where attachment ends. The power of empty space teaches us that void is as valuable as fullness, because it is in the space between things that the mind finally breathes. The beauty of what is imperfect teaches us that imperfection carries beauty and dignity, because what is real with all its visible history is always more beautiful than what is merely perfect. Quality that resists time teaches us that quality is a form of respect, for money, for time, and for the space where we live. Financial clarity teaches us to see clearly what our money tells about who we are, and about who we want to be. And one moment, one encounter, reminds us that the only moment that exists is this one, and that it deserves all our attention, without division, without distraction, without reserve. These 6 principles are not rules to be followed with rigidity. They are invitations. Invitations to a life that shouts less and lives more. to a home that breathes, to a mind that rests, to a woman or a man who chooses the essential with the elegance of someone who already knows that less is, always, so much more. If this video touched something in you, leave a like, subscribe to the channel if you are not yet part of this community, and turn on notifications, because the next conversations are very good and you will want to be present for them. And before you go, leave in the comments your answer to this question. Which of these 6 principles do you want to start practicing first? The phrase for this week is this one: less accumulation, more presence. If this video made sense for your life, write this phrase in the comments. I will love reading each one. Until the next conversation.